Right. So this is what entirely the business analysis life cycle, whatever you can see over here. So as you already know, what exactly business analysts do, right? So because business analysts are the people who act as a liaison between business and technical communities. This is nothing to
Right.
do with technology. This
Mm-hmm.
is nothing to do with domain. Irrespective of technology, the domain, role of a business analyst is to liaise between business and technical communities. Means business analysts will try to understand the requirements from the stakeholder by understanding the business problem, by understanding the business situation, business need, their objectives, goals, all that. So based
Mm-hmm.
on that understanding, what kind of solution is something suitable for the uh, customers will be decided by the business analyst team, okay, not by individual, as a team, I want to say, right? Team.
Mm-hmm.
And that business solution must be translated into a format where we have to update what features and functionalities that we require to develop. All these will be translated, and that requirements has to be given to the technical team. So technical team has to come up with some technical solution. This is where generally
Right.
feasibility comes. Feasibility, we call it
Mm-hmm.
as. Feasibility means how feasible the kind of solution are you going to provide, how feasible it is. Because feasibility in
Exactly.
different levels, either it can be budget level feasibility, because sometimes customer will be having some budgetary constraint. That could be one reason. If
Mm-hmm.
it's not budget level feasibility, it can be technical feasibility. Technical feasibility means whatever the uh, technical constraints we have. Let's say customer is having an existing application infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Mm-hmm.
customer wants to transform from existing to the target system.
Right.
When they are moving towards the target system, as far as the transformation process is concerned, what kind of changes we want to expect and how do we move further? Okay, because let's say the application was developed in .NET. As per the present requirement, it's always required to develop this in Java, for example. I'm just giving an
Mm-hmm.
example to you.
Right.
So what customer has to do? Customer has to transform the infrastructure from .NET to Java, right? So
Right.
infrastructural changes, infrastructural challenges, or
Mm-hmm.
else customer may expecting a kind of solution where it should have a possibility of less operational cost. If it is less
Mm-hmm.
operational cost, we always try to go towards cloud environment, because cloud means you don't require to have any physical infrastructure as servers, firewalls, all that as separate.
Mm-hmm.
You require all these in the cloud environment. You can develop the application in the cloud environment so that people can share it and use it. Okay.
Right.
So feasibility, technical feasibility, operational feasibility, next regulatory feasibility, right? So by discussing about multiple feasibilities and all, technical team will come up with a technical solution. Okay, technical, what kind of technology we want to use, right? What must be the front end? What must be the back end? What must be the middle type? Because if you see any application will be having three different layers. One is
Right.
presentation layer, we call it as. What is that? You can see it on the screen is called presentation layer.
Mm-hmm.
Second is all about second is about data layer. Data layer means whatever the backend database, either it can be Oracle, it can be SQL, right? So this is all something comes under the backend layer or data layer, I can say. Next, middle layer where the logics will be implemented there. This is where generally business logic will be implemented using multiple different programming languages. Either it can be Java, it can be Python. Because Java is a programming language we use majorly for the context of uh, web applications, client server applications, enterprise applications, and all. Java is one which normally we use it. Java is what? Something which normally we use. Because Java is a widely used programming language, especially when we are developing any application. In the middle layer, I'm saying. Okay, because as in when you see three different layers, because let me write down here. I think it's better to write so that you can understand. Okay. Because yeah. So if you have seen layers in an application, okay, application or a project, okay, whatever the name it can be. Okay, I'm just writing it as application. Layers in application will be categorized into three parts. One is presentation layer. One is presentation layer. Second is called as business logic layer. Okay. Third layer is called data layer. Understood? Clear? Understood or not? Right?
Yes, I got it.
Neelam, listening? Right. So presentation layer, business logic, data layer. Presentation layer here, whatever the front-end development we do, right? Whatever the front-end development in context to the application are we going to develop, right? So using different tools like HTML, right? So at the same time, CSS, cascading style sheets, at the same time writing some JavaScript. Nowadays, we are using some React.js, all that, right? React.js. These are all different presentation layers. Means user interface designer is a role will be there. UI and UX designers. Apart from that, even of course, programmers also, front-end programmers and all. These are the roles. Okay, these are the roles. So what those people do, they create a presentation layer. Means let's say, what is that? You can see it on the screen. That's what we call it as presentation layer. So if you want to select, for example, you want to create a login page. That's also the one you can see. In simple forms, we can call it as form. Form, F-O-R-M, form. We call it as form. Right? So this is presentation layer. Data layer means whatever the database we have selected. Okay. It means either it can be Oracle or it can be SQL Server, right? So followed by that, creating some data tables, some data tables, right? So understanding our RDBMS system, DBMS, right? So this is all something called backend database. Data layer means whatever the data you are going to store, everything will be stored in the data layer. Let's say, for example, you are working on a banking application. Okay. So what kind of data banks will be having? Customer data. What kind of customers they are? Either customers who has taken loan from the bank, whatever the kind of loan they can be, or else customers who is having account in their bank. Either it can be a savings account, or it can be a current account, or it can be of anything. Okay. So there is some data which will be hosted through a presentation layer. Where this will be stored, this has to be stored in the database, right? It has to be stored in the database. If you want to store this into the database, what is that you require? You need to have some data tables. For example, you are mentioning a name of a person that has to store exactly into the column of a customer name. So if you are posting some contact details or contact number and all, it must store in the contact column. Am I right or not? Why? Why?
Right.
Because in future, if you want to generate any report, for example, user, whoever the user it can be, a backend team, banking official, wants to know about uh, uh, people who are maintaining on an average $500 in every quarter. They want to see. Okay, they want to know the report on a particular, for example, in a particular state, or it may be in a particular city, for example. How come they know? This is where generally they need to have some queries they have to write. Means whatever the SQL are we using, right? So I think you know it. You must be knowing about that.
Yes, basics I know, yes.
So SQL queries and all everything they will be writing. So all the SQL queries, creating some data tables, right? So all these things are comes under data layer. So there will be professionals. Usually database professionals are available. So they will be taken care of in those days. Now the situation was changed. I'll tell you that later in some time. I'll tell you how the situation has changed. I'll tell you after some time. Okay. Now, earlier there were a separate data layer team or database professionals. These database professionals are expertise in creating some data tables or creating some DBMS system or DBMS, all that. So creating some data layers, all these things used to be taken care of by them. Now, the middle one is called business logic layer. Here, developers or coding team, whoever they are, right? Whoever. Developers write code for the project. Okay, what is the project we are working on? Developers will write code for the project using different programming languages. Okay, there are lot many. Okay, I'm not specifying everything because that much of detailing is not required here, right? So business, they have to write a business logic. Let's say, for example, you want to know the addition of two numbers. It can be 1 plus 2 or it can be 500 plus 300. Addition of two numbers, there must be some business logic. So using some commands and all everything, we have to write a program. So who will be doing all that? This is where generally developers will write a business logic in a form of code. Why in a form of code? Because in a form of code, whatever the programming language they are using, either it can be Java, it can be Python, it can be Kotlin, it can be anything else. Okay, Kotlin, it can be Ruby, right, or something like different. So using different programming languages, developer will write a code. Because, for example, I'm speaking to you and you are speaking to me. What kind of what kind of language are we using? It must be, I think, English, right? That's what the language we are using. So interacting between two different humans or among humans, there must be some language required to communicate. Do you agree? Yes, sir.
Right.
But when it comes to the system is a physical entity, but it's not live. Okay, it's a physical entity, but it's not live to exact to the point. Because how come system understands then? You have to instruct system in the way which system has to understand. That's where we call it as programming language coming to picture. Understood, Neelam?
Right. Got it.
So further, generally Java, Python, Kotlin, all these are there. Java, as far as Java projects are concerned, when we are working on some standalone applications or any client server applications, any distributed or enterprise, right? So all these applications and all, now and then we are using Java. This is very long time we are using Java. So using some exception handling, IO streams, at the same time collection API, right? So at the same time, it can be advanced level Java, for example, when we are using some JDBC, which will be used for Java database connectivity, thin driver, type 1 driver, type 1 driver, type 2 driver, servlets, JSPs. Because, for example, you are working on client server application, technical people uses some client server applications. So client server applications, they use servlets and JSPs, all that. In remote and distributed applications and all, they use RMI, Corba, right? So for enterprise applications and all, of course, we have separate technologies, right? That's how generally Java is being used extensively for almost 2 decades, more than 2 decades. But even till today, we have a lot of requirements even for Java as well. Now, when it comes to the Python, Python is a programming language extensively used when we are working on data analysis related projects. Because nowadays you see there are a lot of data analysis related positions available.
Right.
A lot of organizations uses some data analysis tools and techniques like using some statistical tools and all that, R programming, all that, right? So to do analyze the data to take some decision out of it. So for that, generally they use Python, like that Kotlin, like that Ruby, right? So there are different programming languages will be used These are the three different layers will be there in the project. Understood? Clear?
Right, got it.
Right. So this is
Yes.
where generally this technical team has to decide what kind of programming language and all that. Now, in extension to that, I must tell you this because this point is not something related for a business analyst role, because even in this much of detailing is not required. But we never know when we are going for job opportunities, maybe in future, we must be having some understanding over the technology. Hence, I'm explaining all this to you. Okay, not
Right,
the
sir.
way that it doesn't mean that all these things has to be taken care of for you. It doesn't mean it. Okay. Now, when it comes to the
Right.
layers of the application, earlier there are front-end people as separate. There are developers who exclusive write coding as separate. There are some back-end team and all
Right.
as separate. And that's how earlier was. Of course, even now also we have, but nowadays slowly it was moving towards full stack.
Full stack developer.
Full stack. I think you might have heard about this word called full stack.
Right, sir.
It can be of anything, right? It can be of full stack. Full stack is a word will be used for three layers. To make it say, there are lot many technical terminologies which I don't want to use it because it leads to confusion to you. So that I'm not going that much technical this thing. But whatever the layers you see, right? So these are the three different layers, whatever I have explained you. Right from presentation to data, all these layers are called full stack. Means if you are a person wants to have a career in IT nowadays, most of the organizations, because I'm not generalizing this statement for all the companies. Of course, there are some front-end people also, they're asking front-end developers, but usually some companies are asking full stack professional. Full stack in what? Full stack in Java. Full stack can be. Full stack in .NET also. Full stack in Python. Okay. Full stack in DevOps. Understood? Clear?
Right.
Understood or not? Right. So
Yes, sir, I got it.
full stack. Full stack means complete presentation layer you need to have. Like for example, Java full stack. You need to have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, AngularJS, all that. You need to have some Java programming language, as I told you, servlets, JSPs, all that. Next, database. Database, we have some database tool right now. We have a database called MongoDB, right? MongoDB.
Right.
So these are all comes under full stack. Nowadays, what organizations are expecting from the people is that you must be a full stack. So that you must be doing everything. That's how the industry is revolving slowly. So to what extent people are reaching to that situation and all everything depends on person's individual interest to interest and other reasons. Okay, let us not get into that. So this is where generally the layers of the application. Based on the layers of the application, based on the previous application, what it was, what kind of technical solution has to be given and all will be decided by the technical team. Understood? So what was the base for that? Whatever the business solution given by the BA is the base for that. Understood? Clear? Right? Now,
yes,
technical team here is a point. Here, let's say that we are developing some banking application. Technical team are well versed about the technology, right? So they are very good at technology. Either it can be front end, middle tier, back end, all that.
Right.
But here the point is there must be some technical roadmap required for them to construct it. Yes, sir. Let's say, for example, you are constructing a building. Let's say you bought a piece of land. You have enough financial resources with you. You have enough money to construct the building. Let's say it is a residential apartment. Okay. So you have bought a piece of land, right? You have enough financial resources with you. You have experienced amazing staff, working staff and all everything. You have all the supervisors, right? So you have everybody are there with you. Is it something you have bought the raw material also, whatever the required raw material, everything you bought, for example, what else is required apart from you? Are these are enough to you or is there anything else you require?
Yeah, I think I would need architect.
Right. You need a blueprint of the building. Am I right?
Right.
Now, again, blueprint of the building, again, you have to categorize it into different parts. Front-end development, front-end of the building layer is different. Front-end. Next, internal. Internal means how many floors you are constructing. You need to have a floor plan. How many flats you are constructing in every floor. You need to have a floor. Now, electrical drawings, plumbing drawings, right? So you need to have all landscape drawings, right? Whatever the landscaping we do and all, right? So landscape drawing, all these things are required for you. Agree or not, right?
Right, right,
So
I agree.
if you want to construct a building, you require not less than 7 to 8 drawings.
True.
Why? Because everything is interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is interconnected. Because electrical drawings, plumbing drawings are interconnected within the flat.
Right.
Because in the flat, if you have not given this provision, then there will be of no value because these are interconnected. So
Right.
in the same way, when you are developing any application, it's not only an application you're developing as a whole, because this application may have some integration with other applications. For example,
Right,
you're
right.
working on a banking application, a core banking application you're developing for one of your customers is from banking sector. Now, what is that we required here? It's not only about the application you are developing. It's not only about what features and functionalities. Let's say bank is using some CRM, some Salesforce CRM application they're using to manage their customers, or dynamic CRM, or they may be using some Oracle ERP or some something like SAP ERP application to integrate it. So this
Right.
application core bank is not a standalone. This application is directly and indirectly integrating with other applications. So when you want to make the changes in the existing application or you're developing a new application, make sure you must be having an interconnect with all these.
Right, right, got it.
Agreed? Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where generally architect role is coming to picture. So architects are the people who develop architecture for the project. Whatever the architecture and all, architects are the people who will be developing architecture for the project. So those architectures and all everything are different because there are different architectures we'll be having. Let's say, for example, we call it as enterprise architecture on a whole. Okay. Enterprise architecture. Again, if people wants to know about enterprise architecture, in this, again, you have business architecture. Okay. You have application architecture. You have systems architecture or infrastructure architecture, or else you required some data architecture. At the same time, finally, people should come up with solution architecture. Okay. So who will be doing all that? There will be a team of people who will be doing architecture. Those people are called architects. So architect create a technical roadmap based on the non-functional requirements which a business team has been given. Because application development is not something only to do with features and functionalities, all that. But application is also to do with the performance of the application. How well the application is performing, scalability, security, reliability,
Right.
availability, load balancing, fault tolerancing, all these are required. Am I right? Yes.
Right.
This is all needed, right? So architects should play a vital and important role, and architects will play a vital and important role in order to maintain all this. This is where generally architects provide some technical roadmap. Of course, these people must be from the technical background only most of the times. So whatever the technical roadmap they have given will be given by back to the technical team, and technical team will develop application, and whatever the application they are developed and all, that will be delivered to the stakeholders. So this is where generally the role of a business analyst in any of the organization. Either you are a functional business analyst, or you may be a business systems analyst, or you may be a systems analyst, or it can be an application based business analyst and all that. So these are the different skill sets which, being a business analyst, one has to be acquired. Understood, Neelam? Clear? Right.
Right. Right, sir.
So, because nowadays business analysts are not only functional, because functional BA means business analyst having experience in investment banking, payments. It can be healthcare, it can be insurance, all that. This is all domain specific. Second, business analysts are technical BAs nowadays. Technical BAs means, for example, any application they are developing. Most of the
Mhm.
applications nowadays are data migration applications. Data
Right, right.
migration means you are migrating data from old systems to the new system. So a person should be having experience to have a knowledge over data migration, how the data will be transformed. Before you are transforming the data, you must be knowing about what kind of data is this. That's where
Mhm.
generally file formats come into picture. It can
Right,
be
right.
XML, it can be JSON, right? All that. And at the same
Mhm.
time, having a knowledge over ETL process, extracting the
Mhm.
data, transforming the data, loading the data, all that. Next, if
Mhm.
you want to have a communication between two applications, you need to have a knowledge over API. Either it can be HTTP or it can be RESTful, it can be SOAP, all that. So, or a
Mhm.
SQL, some kind of Power BI. So these are all something which we call it as technical business analyst roles. That's where we can call it as business systems analyst BSA, or some people call it as systems analyst, some people call it technical
Mhm.
BA roles. These are all
Mhm.
second category.
Okay.
Third category, business analyst in the application side BA. This is more or less something closer to technical BA only. But the kind of roles you might have seen maybe in the job portals, all that business analyst in Salesforce, business
Mhm.
analyst
Right.
in Dynamics, business analyst in
Mhm.
Oracle ERP, business analyst in
Mhm.
MuleSoft, ServiceNow, Hybris, right?
Mhm.
Did
Right.
you? I think you might have seen all these, right?
Yes, for
Business
Salesforce,
analyst
yeah.
in some other
Other.
guideware, property and casualty insurance. We have guideware. Business analyst in Facets application in healthcare, right?
Right.
So application based means you are a BA, whatever the skill sets being a business analyst you require and all everything remains constant, that never changes. What is that you required? You need to have a knowledge over a particular application. If it's a Dynamics, you need to have a knowledge over how Dynamics works.
Mhm.
Because an organization using a Dynamics application in their company to manage their CRM process and all, they require some sort of configuration must be done within the organization by understanding their business rules and government mandates. Who will be doing that? Business analyst has to find the requirements for that. So if you are a business analyst, if you want to find out those requirements, what is that you must be having? First of all, you should have a knowledge over how that application works. Okay, according to that, whatever the required some workflows to be created, or if you want to configure any kind of fields or user interfaces, custom fields, right? So workflows, all these will be done by the application business analyst who are application based BA. Did you understand this clearly?
Yes, I got it. Mhm.
Right. So this is where generally business analyst role come into existence. So if you are a BA, especially from the context of a business analyst role, having some functional knowledge is required nowadays. At the same time, some technical knowledge even required, right? So you need to have some technical skills. So nowadays the industry is transforming towards this direction. This is where general going business analyst is going to do in any of the projects. Clear now? Understood? Is it clear to you, Neelam?
Yes, sir, I got it. Yeah.
Right. So this is where generally the BA on a overall note. Now, when it comes back to the point here, right? So here you can see this is where generally business analysis life cycle on a project based. Why I mentioned as a project based? Because there are two services we have in the field of IT. One is project based, means service based, and second is product based. How it is different? Project means you are providing a solution for a particular customer, right? For a particular customer, you are providing a solution, not for everyone. But when it comes to the product means you are developing a product on your own. Did you understand this? Right.
Yes,
You're
sir, I got
developing
it.
a
Yeah.
product on your own. For example, uh, you can take the best example I can give you, Microsoft. Microsoft has a product called operating system. Okay, operating system. At the same time, Salesforce CRM, Microsoft Dynamics CRM. It can be Microsoft Visio. It can be Microsoft Project. It can be guideware application. Okay, it can be Facets application, or else it can be a product called, especially in the banking sector, the one of the product which is by Infosys is called Finacle, because Finacle is one of the finest product powered by Infosys Corporation, Infosys company. It's called Finacle, which will be used as a core banking solutions across most of the banks and all of the thing. In some places, majorly, some places, some area of it across the world. In some part of the world, it is being majorly used of it. So this Finacle, that's called the product name called Finacle. So this is where we call it as product based. So product is not something designed only for a particular customer. Product is designed particularly for a particular industry. Let's say I'm developing a core banking product. This is majorly I'm targeting for banking people, people who are doing banking transactions and all across the world. By keeping them into mind, I'm developing a core banking application. Okay, so I'm not specifying this core banking product just to cater the needs of a particular customer. Okay, I'm developing a product, what are the features and functionalities and all everything remains constant and same to me. But when it comes to the usage, when they are purchasing according to the business rules which that organization consists of, whatever the changes they want to make and all everything, they'll be doing. Did you got my point clear, Neelam?
Yes, sir, I got it. Yep.
So this is where generally project based to product based is different. So I'm not getting into product based. This is where I'm focusing on project based side. Now, if you have seen the life cycle of a project base, this is how generally it will be transformed. You can see the first phase is called plan and prepare phase. This is the first phase. Second phase is called discovering the current state, followed by the future state or a target state, I can say. Next, develop and managing requirements. Next, design, build and testing, followed by transition and support. These are the different stages of life cycle you see in business analysis. Okay. Now, what is meant by planning and preparation phase? Planning and preparation phase majorly try to understand about the goals of the customer. Sometime back in the introduction of my session, sometime back I have told you this. Okay, customer, some X is a customer you have. X is a customer wants to understand about what kind of goals are we going to achieve, right? This is where generally sponsoring of goals means, for example, there is a project sponsor, let's say project sponsor or a banking company wants us to develop some core banking application. First of all, we being a business analyst should be knowing about for what reason we need to require to develop core banking. For what reason? What was the purpose behind that? What kind of solution is something amicable to them, feasible to us? All these things we have to understand. So business analyst is nothing to do with only trying to understand the business problem, but we need to understand about the kind of goals which they want to invest, because customer is spending some X amount of money on the project, right? X amount of. Against to that, what they expect some return of investment. Some return of investment will be expected by them. This is where generally we see when it comes to the understanding the project goals and all everything come into picture. Clear to you, Neela? Right?
Right.
So understanding the project goals. Next, identification of the resources. It can be manpower resource, it can be a technical resource, all that. Next, we need to gather the team, right? So we need to define the roles. We need to identify what kind of stakeholders are we having, right? So either it can be internal stakeholders or external stakeholders, all that. So this is all something which normally comes under the planning and prepare phase. So once the planning is done, what is that we have to do? We need to identify the current state. As I've given, let's say, customer is expecting us to develop a new core banking application. Does it mean they don't have any application earlier as such? No, not that.
No.
Right? So they must be having some application, but the application might be an old one, which may not be catering the present requirements of the business and the organization in specific to the industry related stuff, etc., etc. So they want some solution. So what is that you have to do? First, you need to understand the current state, what exactly the existing application was, right? So how it is processing, what are the features and functionalities which are involved in it. All these things we need to know. If you want to know it, what is that you require, you have to interact with the customer. This is where generally we call it as elicitation process, we call it as illustration process.
Right.
Illustration process means how you are going to illustrate the requirements. There are different illustration techniques like something like interviews, workshops, right? Group discussions, focus groups. conducting some chat sessions, right? So all these things, right? So either through observation, we'll be knowing many things, right? Or exchanging of documents and presentations, exchanging of emails, sitting across the table, and we will be knowing more information, right? So this is all something which we'll be getting information as far as the current state is concerned. So once you have identified the current state, the next is future state, nothing but a target state. Now, what kind of application is required? So how to differentiate between current state to future state? This is where generally being a business analyst, whatever we do is called gap analysis. This is what we call it as gap analysis. Means defining the state of transition between current system to the target state is called gap analysis. Gap analysis means what are the gap you have identified between the old systems to the new system you're about to develop is called gap analysis. Right? So if you want to understand the problem, root cause analysis. There is a difference. Root cause analysis to try to understand the problem, where exactly the problem was. Gap analysis means where the gap was existed.
Right.
Understood? Right? So this is where gap analysis come into picture. So once you have identified the gap analysis, next you need to finally, what are the solution we have identified? For that, you have to prepare some documents. For example, if you follow traditional waterfall, something like, for example, you are following some traditional model, something like waterfall, right? So V model, etc., all that, right? So we prepare some BRD, SRS, functional requirements, non-functional requirements, etc. As part of requirements communication, I'm talking.
Right.
If you are calling agile, then you are writing epics, you're writing user stories, all that, using different tools. Okay. So all these are comes under the developing and managing the requirements, because you need to manage the requirements. Followed by that, what is you have to prepare? You need to prepare some UMLs, or you need to prepare some prototypes if it is required for the customer. All these things is what something comes under developing and managing requirements is all about. Once you have communicated requirements, once you have communicated requirements, so once you have communicated requirements to the technical team, what technical team do? This designing, building, and testing of the application is what something which normally they do. This is where I have told you this, right? So this technical team, architects, all these people will come into picture over here. And this is where generally these people will try to, so these people will try to design the system, right? So they'll be building some, they'll write some code, they do some testing. All these things will be done by them here, right? Testing and all that. So once it is tested and all that, finally the project will be delivered. If there is any support and transition to be taken care of in future, right? Support team will be there if there is any changes are required, right? So providing some support, or else giving some training to them, creating some training and user manuals. All these things are comes under the transition and supporting phase. So this is what the complete understanding over the business life cycle. Being a business analyst, one must be required to perform, which is again nothing to do with any technology, nothing to do with domain. So whatever the kind of role are we playing, that may be varied. For example, if you required a person want to have a banking domain knowledge, means whatever the life cycle I have told you, this remains as it is, but you need to have a knowledge over domain on a particular domain. If it is application, on that particular application. Did you got my point clear, Neelam?
Right, so I got it.
Right. So this is where generally this business life cycle is all.